Well, I'm excited to be here. My name is Mike Gurr. I'm the executive director at the Meadows Ranch, and I'm very excited for this presentation for this IEADP virtual symposium. I'd like to start off by letting everybody know who I have with me today. I've got Dr. Dick Schwartz, who hopefully everybody knows, but he's the founder of IFS. Also a senior fellow at the Meadows, so very excited to have Dick on this presentation. Also, we have Jenny Schaefer, who again in this circle of IEADP, I hope everybody pretty much knows Jenny. But again, she is an author of just a handful of amazing books. She's also doing another book right now on trauma, and she's also a senior fellow at the Meadows. So I am surrounded by two amazing people today, and we're just going to jump in to our presentation. And I just wanted to start off that I met Dick about a year ago. He came out to the Meadows Ranch, and as I was talking to him in my office, I was getting a little bit of his background about just how he started and where IFS started. And his response, I did not know this. And as I have gone around the country, as I've talked to colleagues, and I've let them know about that interaction I had with Dick, most of them didn't know of his background with eating disorders and how that was connected with IFS. So how I'd like to start this presentation is I really would like, Dick, if you would just talk a little bit about your background in the beginning with your work with eating disorder patients and really how that influenced your work and really the beginnings of IFS.
Sure, Mike, and it's great to see you again and be with you again. And Jenny, it's good to get to know you better. Yeah, I first got interested in eating disorders. We'll take another step back. I got a PhD in family therapy, marital and family therapy, back, and it graduated in 1980. And I was one of those zealous family therapists who thought anybody who wasn't doing family therapy was an idiot, and you were wasting your time mucking around in the inter-psychic world, because we could change all that by just changing these external relationships, and decided I wanted to prove that. And I was a structural family therapist, and Mnuchin had written a lot about anorexia and how much luck they had with structural family therapy. So I and a woman named Mary Jo Barrett connected with a local eating disorder facility and decided we would focus on bulimia, which was at the time just coming out as a big deal. And also we liked the fact you could count the binges. You know, there was ways to measure that were pretty clear. And went ahead and did this outcome study. And I found that I could reorganize the families just the way the book said to do it. And still a bunch of my clients kept binging and purging, much to my chagrin. And so I began asking why, which as family therapists, we were taught not to do, just stay away from that. And my clients began teaching this to me. They began talking about their parts, which was a new idea to me. I thought we all just had one mind, but they would talk about how when something bad happened, this critic would attack them brutally. And that would bring up a part that could make them feel totally empty and alone and young and scared. And that feeling was so dreadful that to the rescue would come the binge and turn them into an unfeeling eating machine. But the act of the binge would bring back the critic, who's now calling him a pig on top of the other names. And then that would bring back that young, empty, alone, worthless feeling. So the binge had to come back. And as a family therapist, that was sounding familiar to me. It sounded like these sequences of interaction that I'd been tracking in families. And I began to experiment, just overlaying a lot of what I learned in family therapy, and began trying to get my client to relate differently to these parts. And in the beginning, because I thought they were what they seemed, I would have my client fight with stand up for herself with the critic and control the binge. And I did that even though my clients were getting worse, until the first one I was aware of, who also cut herself pretty severely and had extensive sex abuse history. And I decided I wasn't going to let her leave my office one day until the cutting party agreed not to do it to her. And back then I was using that empty chair technique. So I was having her be herself and then sit in another chair and play the part. And after a couple hours of that, the part finally said, okay, I won't do it to her. And I came to the next session and opened the door, and she had a big gash down the side of her face. And that was a turning point in this work. So I just spontaneously said, I give up. I can't beat you with this. And the part said, I don't really want to beat you. And that made me just curious about, then why do you do this? And it talked about how when she was being abused, how much it needed to get her out of her body and contain the rage that would get her more abuse. And so I shifted again, and now I'm not just curious, but I have a kind of appreciation for the heroic role it played in her life. And I conveyed that to the part, and it broke into tears and talked about how it still had to protect a lot of other vulnerable parts inside of her. And it also sounded like it was stuck back in those sex abuse scenes, like it wasn't living in the present. And all of that made me think maybe these parts aren't what they seem. Maybe they're like kids in a family, where family therapy's big insight was you can't take a kid out of a troubled family and who's acting out and tell them to stop. You got to actually learn about all the forces in the family that are provoking or needing that behavior and change that. So with all that, I started to try and get clients to listen to these parts rather than fight with them, and was amazed to find that all the eating disorder parts, the anorectic parts, the bulimic parts, and so on, had similar stories, and we're also trying to protect the client. And so I'm trying to get my clients to have compassion for them. And I'm a family therapist, so I'm having these dialogues. And one client said, I don't really have to jump around in these chairs. I can just sit here and do it. So since then, clients just sit and do it. And so I'm trying to maybe get my bulimic kid to listen to her critic. And I'm having that dialogue happen. And suddenly she's furious with the critic. And as a family therapist, it seemed familiar, because when I would have two people in a family session talking to each other and one gets angry at the other, usually there's somebody else who's interfering, even subtly, kind of cueing that he disagrees with the other. And we learned as family therapists to get that person to step back out of the line of vision and have a better boundary around the other two. And then when you did that, things would go better. So I started trying that with these bulimic kids. And so I would say, could you find the one who hates the critic and get it to step back in there? And they could do that, to my amazement. And when they did, they would shift into somebody who was suddenly just curious about a part that they hated seconds earlier or were terrified of seconds earlier. And as I did that across a lot of different clients and found it was like the same person would pop out when you get some parts to open space. And that person knew how to relate to the binging part or the critic or these other parts in a way that was quite nice and healing, actually. And when I would ask clients, what part of you is that? They'd say some version of, that's not a part like these others, that's more me, myself. So I came to call that the self. And that's the big discovery in IFS, that in everybody, including people with horrible trauma histories, there is this essence that can't be destroyed and can be accessed pretty simply by simply getting these parts to open space, because it's just beneath the surface of them. And when people access that, they'll manifest some of these, what we call the 8 C's of self-leadership, that include curiosity, calm, confidence, compassion, courage, creativity, clarity, and connectedness. So you access that person, and then you have them begin to interview their parts and get to know the secret histories of how the parts were forced into their roles and how much they hate the roles they're in, but they're stuck in the past and they think terrible things would happen if they didn't keep doing it. And then you can kind of update them and learn about who they protect, get permission from them to go to that and find those often little inner children who are so hurt or terrified or ashamed. And there's a whole process for what we call unburdening those parts so that they transform immediately into their naturally valuable states, which, you know, with those exiled parts are generally happy, you know, playful, creative little kids. And when that happens, once you've healed all that, then you go back to the eating disorder parts or the critic, and they don't want to do this anymore. They were doing it to protect that exile. Now they want to transform too into something much more what they're designed to do and much more valuable. So that's in a nutshell, and I guess about 15 minutes or 10 minutes, what usually takes me a couple hours to tell, but that's the story.
And I love that, Dick. Thank you. That was a great summary of it. And again, I just think it's fascinating, as you know, me and you talked, that, you know, how IFS really is just blossoming over these last few years. And I don't think a lot of people realize where that came from, or a little bit of your background or that history. So I just wanted people to know and understand that in this presentation, you know, specifically with IEADP in this virtual conference. So I appreciate you're doing such a great job at summarizing that. Now what we would like to do is kind of turn a little bit, knowing that there's that background that Dick has. And again, I think most of you know Jenny's background, right? She does a wonderful job for us. And I love working with her. I've done a lot of presentations with her. I love her vulnerability and her willingness to tell her story. And that's really what I've asked Jenny to do today, is to tell her story and do it really with Dick. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Dick and Jenny basically just interact. And I thought this would be a great part of this presentation for people to see IFS in action as it is being used with an eating disorder. And then also, I believe time will permit, but we'll also be able to see it being used with trauma. And so you're going to see two different role plays between Dick and Jenny. And then once those role plays are done, I will come back on and just kind of finish up this presentation. So without further ado, again, thank you, Jenny, for being here. And I will turn it over to the both of you. So Dick, I will go ahead and turn it over to you and Jenny.
Great, thank you. I actually would love to preface real quick so everyone knows, Dr. Swartz and I have not practiced this at all. I have no idea what he's going to say. He has no idea what I'm going to say. But for this first little nugget that we're going to do, I'm really going to take you back to when I was about 22 years old and first getting help in early recovery for anorexia nervosa, and I struggled with the binge purge type, and you'll see that in our role play. And keep in mind, my trauma did not happen until after I actually was already in treatment for an eating disorder. So that's why we're going to do a separate piece a little bit later. I ended up struggling with full-blown PTSD about 10 years after I recovered from my eating disorder. So that's just a little heads up on kind of why we're doing two different pieces. And just to tell you, we have never practiced. So I'm super excited, Dr. Swartz. I'll give it to you.
You can, and please call me Dick.
Oh, Dick.
So yeah, so you're 22, is that what I heard?
Yeah, 22. So I'll play the patient now.
Okay.
Yeah, 22. I've been coming to you now, Dick, for like 6 months, and I feel like I'm not getting better. I mean, I binged again last night, and it's like I don't think I'm ever gonna stop. There's just like no control. I feel like I get possessed by this like other entity, and I have no control.
Yeah, by the binging entity, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, like it's always like either all or nothing. And last night was like binging all the way. I couldn't stop until it stopped, and then of course I felt horrible and guilty and ashamed like usual, and I just feel hopeless, like it's never gonna get better.
Yeah. How would it be if we started to get to know that binging entity, you call it, in a little different way. Would you be open to that? And maybe we can help it not have to do this to you anymore.
Sure, I'll try anything at this point.
Okay, great. All right, so if you're up for it, then go ahead and focus on that, whatever it is, an urge inside of you or that feeling like you've got to binge, and see where you find that in your body or around your body.
It feels like in my stomach. Yeah, like in the kind of in the core.
Okay. And as you notice it down there, how do you feel toward it?
I hate it.
Yeah, I can understand that because it makes you do things you don't want to do, right? And like you said, you feel powerless relative to it, right?
I am powerless.
Yeah, okay. So I can understand why you would hate it. But let's just see if the parts that hate it so much would give us a little space to get to know it, maybe. Maybe let you just open your mind to it a little bit. And in doing so, we're not going to give it more power. We're just going to get to know why it seems to need to do this to you and maybe be able to help it not have to. So just see if the ones who hate it so much can relax and step back a little bit. So how do you feel toward it now, Jenny?
I feel like a little bit further from it, and like I still hate it, but it's less because I'm a little bit like back from it.
Okay. All right. So the parts that hate it aren't willing to separate, it sounds like. Does that sound right?
Well, I feel like it's just like who I am.
That the one that hates it is who you are?
Yeah, like there's, yeah, like it's just who I am. I like it's all who I am, you know, like there's no way to separate from it.
From the binging part or from the one that hates the binge?
I guess from the binging part.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it sounds like you separated a little bit, but you still hate it. Does that sound
It
right?
feels like there's just like one big part of me that hates it.
Right. Okay. How about if I talk to that part directly for a second? Would that be okay?
Sure.
All right. So are you there? You willing to talk to me?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So you're the big part of Jenny who hates the binging part. Is that right?
Yeah, because it's like everything she doesn't need to do. I mean, everything I don't want to do, the binging part does.
That's right. Yeah. So I really get why you hate it, like I was saying. And, you know, you've tried for a long time to get rid of it. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've tried for it seems like forever. I mean, for 10 years, you know, finally get help, and I thought I would get better, but help doesn't always
Doesn't seem to be
seem to,
working.
sometimes I
Yeah.
feel like I get worse.
Yeah. So given how hard you've tried, would you be open to a different approach? Because it sounds like your approach hasn't really worked very well.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm coming here. So
Well, you're here, right? All right. So what I was saying earlier is really true. If you are willing to separate from Jenny for a little while so that she can have her mind more open to this binging part, we are likely able to help it not have to do this to her anymore. But it really does take you trusting that there's some value in you separating from Jenny for a second. And then you can pop back later.
okay, as long as I can pop back later.
Yes, absolutely. We'll talk to you afterwards. But okay, so I appreciate your talking to me. And let me talk to Jenny again.
Okay.
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 So you heard all that?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
All right. So now just see if you can feel some separation from that one who hates the binge part so much.
Yeah, that actually helped a lot. I can
Okay.
really feel it.
Then focus on the binge one again and tell me how you feel toward it now.
Interesting. I actually feel like a little bit sad for it.
Yeah. So let it know that and see how it reacts to your compassion. Just see how it
Like,
reacts.
should I say it out loud or in my head?
Either way, it's up to you, whichever seems to be most effective.
Okay, I guess I'll say it out loud. I feel sad that you get berated all the time and yelled at and hated, and that must be really hard to be the one that's always not liked, the one that's always wanted to be pushed out.
Perfect. And how's it reacting? Can you tell?
It's a little bit shocked because it's never had anything nice to it before, so
Right.
it's interesting.
Okay, so it's kind of caught off guard, but it's interested.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay,
It's like a kid who expects like their mom to yell at them and then they don't.
right. And ask it now if there's something it wants you to know about itself, anything at all. Just ask and see what comes to you. Don't think of the answer. Just wait and see what answer comes.
I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It's like my job. And I'm not sure why I said that, but that was the first thing.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. So maybe ask it what it's afraid would happen if it didn't do this job. Just wait for the answer.
Well, it said, I'm afraid like you would never eat and you would never relax.
Okay. Does that make any sense to you, Johnny?
Yeah, for a while I've noticed like I kind of am like a workaholic and I'm always like either waiting tables or like trying to work on some creative stuff, and like I never take breaks. And so in a way I felt like my binging was like my way to like take a break and just like numb out.
Mm-hmm.
But then also like it almost feels like it's also like my body's way of trying to keep me alive, I guess, because I restrict a lot usually.
Okay, so it's what I call polarized with both the restricting part and also the kind of frantic, busy part.
Yeah.
Okay, so let it know you get that and that makes some sense and just see how it reacts.
I get that. I know you're like trying to work with the anorexia part, which is really strong, which that must be like annoying actually now that I think about it. Like trying to fight with or trying to kind of be on polarized ends with the anorexia part. And it's still kind of it's still kind of shocked to have like compassion kind of thrown its way.
Yeah, so tell it more of that's coming, so it needs to get ready.
And more compassion is coming, so.
So ask it this question though. If we could go to the anorexic part and also the frantic one, so they weren't doing this so much, would it have to do the binge thing so much? Just ask and wait for the answer.
Well, the answer is like, no, it wouldn't have to do the binging so much if I would just like give myself breaks, but I have no idea how to do that. And perfectionism is kind of a big struggle. And then, yeah, but it would love it if the anorexia part would kind of back off. Okay. For sure. And yeah.
And if we could do all that, then, and this one was freed up that way, what might it like to do instead inside of you?
Interesting. My first thought was like, it feels like it wants to like, I'm not sure what this even means, but like feels like it wants to help me like write song. Like I want to write songs, but I never like can sit still long enough to do it. And like I'll end up binging, but it's like telling me it wants to help me like write songs and stuff.
Okay, how does that sound to you?
That actually sounds good. And now I'm shocked because I would have never thought that part like wanted to help me in that kind of a way.
Yeah, so let it know you see that it's just a valuable part of you that got forced into this role, and that again, maybe you can apologize for treating it so badly or letting these other parts treat it so badly.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I've not known that what you were really here for, and I'm sorry that so many parts, especially one, seem to really hate you. And
So
we're going to try to do better.
that's great. And maybe ask it, of those parts it's polarized with, so as I recall, it's the anorexic part and that busy part and a perfectionistic part.
Right.
There might have been one other.
I think those are the main ones. And but it was when you said perfectionism, just right, it reminded me too, like I always feel like I have to do everything right. And it's kind of like the binging part is like the rebel.
Right.
It's like the part that'll break the rules. And I don't typically break the rules. So it's sort of like the rebel part.
Yeah, that it can't stand all the rules. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that makes sense too, right?
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
Okay. So ask it, of those parts that it's trying to give you a break from, which of those others would it like us to work with first?
Definitely the anorexia part, because that's the part that's the strongest to the binge part.
Okay.
The most difficult.
All right. All right. So tell it that we're going to do that. And it might take a while before that part is willing to change. So we're not expecting the binge part to give up its job until it's trusting that these other changes have happened. So let it know that and see how it reacts.
All right, I would like to talk to the anorexia part now, and it doesn't mean you have to like go away forever, which I know you're not yet, but if you just back up a little, I would like to talk to the other part.
Yeah, and let it know that we get how much it would like to write songs, and our goal is to release it, to liberate it so it can do that.
Yeah, and we just want to help you. I have compassion for you now. I can see what you're trying to do, and I want to write songs too, so we have that in common. So that's what we're working on.
Okay, great. And let's take one more step with this, and then we'll shift. But then go ahead and focus on the anorexic part. You find it in your body, around your body?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that part seems to be more like in my head. I almost lost sense of my body. And it's like up here.
Yeah.
It's like very loud.
Yeah. And as you notice it there, how do you feel toward this one?
I mean, I gotta say, like, I kind of like this part a little bit. Like, I feel like I'd be really scared to get rid of this part because it like helps me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it makes me feel special, in control, and it's scary to think about letting this part go. This is like the part that I wish I could hold on to a little bit.
Okay. So that all makes sense. So maybe just go ahead and let it know that you kind of value how hard it works to try and make you thin, if that's what it is.
Yeah, I do value how hard you've been working, especially when I was in college. And I mean, you're really good at what you do.
Yeah. And how does it react to your
I mean, it's kind of like, I know. It's sort of like it kind of has like a little bit of an attitude part, like I'm better than all the other parts.
Right, that makes sense.
Kind of like a snob part.
Okay.
Like you can get rid of all of them, but you need me.
Need me, yeah. And ask it about that. Why does it think you need it so much? And what's it afraid would happen if it didn't do this job for you?
I mean, it's afraid I would lose control of everything. That the binge part would just go ballistic, and that I would be lazy and just keep gaining weight forever and like never do anything with my life.
Okay.
Totally out of control.
Got it. So ask it if it listened while we were talking to the binge part.
It did listen because it pays attention to everything.
Right. And what did it think of that conversation? Did it get that the binge part really doesn't want to be a binge part, would rather write songs?
Yeah, I mean, the anorexic part like seems to get that, but she's like, this part's like, as snobby as she is, like she's like really scared. I
Yeah.
know so she's scared, like, what if that's not true?
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. So let her know you see how scared she really is and see how she reacts to being seen that way.
She's kind of surprised too.
Yeah.
She also though kind of tries to act like she's not scared. She's like, I'm not that scared, but she's like, I know she's really scared.
Yeah. So tell her she doesn't have to pretend right now because you can see it, and you know, we want to help her with her fear.
Yeah.
Just see how she reacts.
Yeah, you don't need to pretend anymore. I mean, we're here trying to get help for all of this, and it's okay to be scared. I mean, I'm scared, so.
Yeah. So how's she react when she hears that from you?
That's like one of the first times I felt that part was a little bit more gentle and kind of like relaxed, like shoulders went down and kind of let up just a little bit from being so rigid and like always so uptight and worried.
That's great. Okay. So maybe ask the anorexic part if it protects parts of you, other parts of you.
Do you protect parts of me? And it's first thing I heard was, I protect like you as like a little kid. And interestingly, like at 4 years old, I remember being in dance class and like already afraid of gaining weight and kind of feeling not good enough. I would compare myself to like the other little girls in the room, and already remember hearing that part come in.
Okay. All right. So ask this anorexic part, if we could go to that little 4-year-old and heal her so she wasn't so vulnerable to what people think about your weight, would this one have to work so hard to make you thin?
Well, I mean, she says, interestingly, like she says it's not like it's the little girl is really scared of like everything, super anxious, afraid of just everything. And so the anorexia part says she's also just trying to like calm the little anxious 4-year-old down just in general with everything. And when I think about that, I mean, I was afraid of the dark, you know, at 4 years old or younger, and I was afraid of the dark till I was in college. And so I kind of always felt like I was like born afraid. And the anorexia part says she can kind of help numb that out.
Okay, we get that. But what I'm saying is, if we could make it so that little girl unloaded all that fear and she wasn't afraid anymore,
Oh yeah.
would this one have to keep doing its job? That's what I'm asking.
Wow, it's interesting because when you said that, I'm thinking, my first thought was, oh my gosh, that's possible to like unload that fear. And yeah, the anorexia part went, well, yeah, of course I would like back off if that was true.
Okay. And ask if we could pull that off, what might it like to do instead of spending all its energy doing this?
It said, the first thing I heard it said was, I want to spend time in nature.
Okay. How's that sound to you, Jenny?
That sounds really good to me. There's a park by my house. I've been wanting to be healthy enough to go on like short walks, and right now my dietitian doesn't want me to do any kind of movement like that. So
okay. And ask the anorexic part if it would give us permission to go to that 4-year-old so we can heal her.
She said you can try. She doesn't have much hope.
Yeah.
But she said you can definitely try.
You can try. And before we do that, just check inside and see if there are any other parts that might be afraid to let us do that.
Well, the angry part kind of spoke up and said, I'm not so sure about this, but I really hope it works, interestingly enough.
Okay, and it's giving us permission too?
Yeah, which surprises me.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else need a voice before we go?
I mean, perfectionism part and the rebel part, they would love for that to be true too, because they have other things they want to be doing, but
Yeah.
everyone's a little bit reluctant and not quite sure it'll work, but they're cool with trying.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, so let me do a little bit of a timeout, Jenny, because, you know, we could go there and just to show what we would do with the exiles, or we can shift. So what's your feeling?
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Like, you really had me going back there to feeling those days. And I actually had insights, interestingly, that I hadn't necessarily had. Like, it was a surprise to me when I heard the binging part say, you know, writing songs. But looking back, like, that makes a lot of sense for that time in my life, for sure. I had moved to Nashville to write songs, and I had never written a song at that point. Like, I was always binging or restricting or something. So that was interesting. I mean, we can do whatever you think in terms of time, or maybe we should ask Mike, but that was really, really helpful for me personally today, even today, as like a 44-year-old person.
Yeah.
So
why don't we check with Mike real quick? Are you there, Mike?
Mike, are you still there?
Hey, this is great. You guys are awesome.
Awesome. That is so accurate. That is so much.
Yeah, that is. So let me ask, right? Because we have kind of two ways we can go. You know, you could model, you know, the unburdening, like you were saying, Dick. We could go into that child, or we could make a shift and look at more of the, you know, what we would do with a trauma piece. I honestly, I think I'm feeling for this presentation and people watching it. I think they would like to see a continuation. I know I'm kind of sitting on the edge of my chair, like, hey, I want to see what happens here, right? So, you know, because I think what hopefully they can do is, as you guys are both doing such a great job, they will be able to know, you know, this is very the same process, right, with trauma. So I don't think we need to necessarily make a shift. I would really, I think, like to see you guys continue to go through and do some of that unburdening with the 4-year-old.
Sounds good.
Now I feel like Mike. I feel like Meryl Streep or something. But no, I can get back into it because that was really helpful. So okay.
Okay. Yeah. So let's pick right up where we were. So Jenny, we've gotten a lot of permission, skeptical permission.
Yeah.
From sounds like most all of the parts we're aware of. So how would it feel to you to try and help this 4-year-old?
It'd feel good. I'd like to try.
Okay. So go ahead and focus on her and all her fear and find her in your body, around your body.
Yeah. She feels kind of like, I often feel, it feels kind of like, she's like, it's like little ants crawling all around that are just like this anxious, like little ants all in my body, kind of running around like they building a little nest or whatever. That's kind of everywhere, just like frantic.
And as you notice all that, how do you feel toward this part?
I feel sorry for this part.
Yeah.
This part, it makes me sad, because I wish at 4 years old, I wish somebody would have known that I was so anxious, but I never told anyone. Okay.
But let her know that you feel sorry for her, you care about her.
Okay.
You have compassion for her.
I feel sorry for you. I know you were so scared, and you were so scared to tell anyone you were so scared. And when you did tell people, it seemed like no one understood how scared you were. Like, no one could relate to that level of fear. So, but I can hear you now.
Right. How does she react? Can you tell?
Yeah, oh, sorry. My screen actually froze for a second. So yeah. We're back. Okay. I think they can maybe cut that out, but
yeah.
So I'm sorry, what did you say? Because it completely froze.
How did she react to your compassion?
Oh, that she reacted again, like kind of surprised, but it felt good.
Okay,
Like that it would be okay to share that kind of fear, and it's okay. Like it makes sense.
good. And can you tell how close you are to her in terms of feet away in that world?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like about 5 feet away.
Mhm. And how would it feel to you and to her for you to get a little closer?
She said that would be okay.
All right, so see how close you can get to her with her feeling comfortable.
I got about 2 big steps, but
Okay,
and it was like, stop.
yeah. All right. So from that distance, just keep showing her however it feels right that you're there, she's not alone right now, and you care about her.
Okay, I'm here. You're not alone. I know you are scared of so much, and you have a very creative imagination of what to be afraid of, and I see that now, and I'm not going to leave you anymore.
And how does she react now?
She actually said I could get a little closer.
Okay, good.
So
So it does seem that she doesn't quite trust you, and maybe ask her about that. Ask her why she doesn't trust you.
why don't you trust me? Ooh, she said, because you don't listen to me.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the anorexia part or the binge part often comes in with when I'm anxious, like when that anxious part comes out, the anorexia part comes in and kind of restricts it away,
Mm-hmm.
or the binge part comes in and stuffs it away.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't have to be so anxious for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So maybe let her know you're sorry that you let these other parts do those things instead of listening to her this way, and see how she reacts.
I'm sorry that I've let the other parts kind of take over and that I wasn't really there listening, but I'm going to try to do better. And she reacted, but you don't know what to do.
Okay, well, ask her what she wants you to do.
What do you want me to do? And she actually said she said, I want you to know that I'm not going to kill you, meaning like anxiety is not going to kill you.
Yeah.
That if you just feel it, like it'll be okay. It's not going to annihilate you. I
Mm-hmm.
guess she's been feeling like I've been trying to like push her away, like almost scared of her.
Yeah, well, you have been, right?
I guess that's why she feels that way. Yeah.
So let her know you're getting this.
Good point.
And as she tells you that she won't annihilate you, how do you feel toward her?
Oh, I feel more compassion. It actually makes me teary-eyed because it must be hard to feel like someone's like so scared of you.
Yeah, you're constantly rejecting her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let her know you get how hard that would be for her.
I can see how hard that would be for so many years, me kind of
Yeah.
pushing you away, not listening.
How's she reacting now?
She's kind of looking up at me more, like willing almost for me to be closer.
Okay, so see if you can get closer.
I got like really close, like a foot away.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and tell her she's giving us lots of valuable information. Just
Yeah.
see if there's more she wants you to know.
Well, she felt really happy and excited when you said that, the valuable information. If I say, you're giving me valuable information, she feels like for the first time, oh my goodness, I'm loved, I'm wanted, I'm valuable.
That's right.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, good. And yeah, anything else she wants you to know right now?
She said it's going to be okay, which I find interesting because I never would have thought she would have said that, because it always feels like, it often felt like it wasn't going to be okay with her. But
Yeah. Now, if you're up for it, Jenny, we can ask her where she's stuck in the past with all this fear.
sure. I mean, I've been envisioning her like in literally in dance class, in a little leotard, in this room with wall-to-wall mirrors, and I've been seeing her in there where she's really shy and doesn't really have friends. She's afraid to talk to people. She's younger than some of the others. Yeah.
Okay, good. And ask if she does feel like you get how scary that was for her and how bad it was for her. Or if there's more she wants you to get about that.
Is there anything else you want me to get about that? And she said, then she brought up, she hated going to this babysitter who was just sort of not nice, not friendly. And she said, why don't you ever tell anybody? Like, she wanted me to tell my mom about it, but about the babysitter being rude, but looking back, I can see she often wanted me to say things, but I was afraid to use my voice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so I'm going to invite you now to actually go to her in that time period.
Okay.
And be with her in the way she needed somebody back then. And just tell me when you're in there with her.
Okay, I'm in there.
And how is it for her to have you there?
She likes it. She's kind of like sitting on my knee. Like, I'm kind of kneeled down with one knee up, and she feels supported, literally, like physically and otherwise. And more relaxed, just kind of how that anorexia part kind of went, calm down. It was like, that's kind of what she did.
Okay, good. And ask her if there's anything she wants you to do for her or with her back there before we take her out to a good place.
Is there anything you want me to do for you? I mean, she said, please don't leave me.
Yeah. Well, tell her you're not going to, but does she want you to talk to the mother for her or anything like that back there?
Wait, does she want me to what? Talk to
the mother or anybody else back there for her?
Yeah, I think she wants me to talk to my parents if we have time.
We have some time, yeah. So go ahead and do that for her, whatever she wants you to say.
Well, she wants me to say the things, she wants me to say, I really am afraid of the dark. Like, really. And it's not just like I'm afraid, it's like it's all consuming, and I am terrified all night long. And when you guys say just like, oh, like keep the light on, I don't think, it makes me feel like you don't understand how scared I am.
Yeah. So you're doing that for her?
Yeah, I'm trying to tell like my parents how intense I actually did feel these things, because I never really expressed fully. I kind of am like the sensitive one in my family, and my two brothers were never afraid of the dark, and they're not that anxious, and I was just a different kind of child.
Yeah. But ask her what it's like for her to watch you stand up for her with the parents.
I mean, she's like really likes that.
Okay.
She's like smiling.
So tell her you can do that kind of thing for her now.
I can do that for you now. She is like really smiling now.
And see if she'd like now to leave that time and place with you and come to a safe, comfortable place.
Oh, she definitely does. She never liked being in that dance room, but she never told anyone that either.
Yeah. All right, so let's take her somewhere safe and comfortable. She'd enjoy. It could be in the present, it could be a fantasy place, wherever she wants to go.
She wants to come like kind of to the present where I am in Nashville. And she wants to, actually, she kind of wants to like hang out and write songs too.
Okay.
Like be like a part of that.
Okay.
Like
So
a part of joy and fun. She didn't get to have, she was so scared she missed out on things that could have been more fun. So she wants to make up for that.
So is she there with you now?
Yes.
Okay. And tell her she never has to go back there and you're going to take care of her now.
Right. You never need to go back there. I'm going to take care of you now. I'm going to listen to you. And I might not always know what to do, but I'm going to listen. And I'll try to find a safe way for us to navigate life.
And with that, see if she's ready now to unload some of this fear, because she doesn't need it anymore.
Are you ready to unload some of this fear? And her first reaction was a little bit, but I still think I need to hold on to a lot of it.
Okay.
It's a dangerous world out there. We might need it. But she was willing to give a little.
Okay. And, you know, over time, she may come to trust that you can protect her from this dangerous world too.
Yeah.
But right now, we'll just give up whatever she's ready to.
Yeah. Yeah, she gave up. Well, she kind of said, well, I see, I mean, I'm no longer afraid of the dark. Like when I moved to Nashville, I was kind of forced to get over it. And because I live alone now. And she said, well, that actually got better. So maybe other things can get better too.
Okay, good. So ask her where she carries that fear in her body or on her body.
It's the stomach.
Yeah. And what would she like to give this portion of it up to? Light, water, fire, wind, earth, anything else?
Ooh, earth.
All right. So tell her to let go, let it, whatever amount is okay with her, let that go into the earth.
Right. Whatever amount is okay, you can let that go into the earth. It's like she put her hands on the ground in the actual dirt and let more of it go than I thought.
Oh, good.
And actually, I feel like a little lighter and less anxious.
Yeah. All right, good. So before we stop then, let's bring in the anorexic part and the bulimic part and all these protectors to see they don't have to do this now as much and just see how they react.
Interesting. They kind of all acted like little teenagers, like, whatever, like maybe, but like they gave a little, they're like, I'll trust you a little bit, but kind of like rolling their eyes at me, like, whatever.
Yeah, that's fine. You know, they need to have you prove it to them over time.
Yeah.
That you can actually take care of this girl. So just let them know you're going to do that.
I hear you guys, and I'm going to do my best to take care of my little kid. And they actually eased up a little on their attitude.
Okay, good.
But still, you know, anorexia especially is like, I'm going to be here watching out for you. I'm going to make sure this is okay.
Okay, well, before we stop, just thank them for the trust and giving us a chance to show them we can do this. And so I know it was a stretch, so thank them very much for us.
Thank you guys for letting me talk to you. And they actually, I mean, that's interesting because I don't think I've ever really thanked them. And they were a little bit surprised about that too.
Okay. Does that feel complete for now, Jenny?
Yeah, I feel much less anxious and more hopeful.
Okay, so come on back.
All right. Oh my gosh, you're amazing.
You're amazing. That was so accurate, especially given it was a lot of years ago. So.
Well, I had an eating disorder, that's for sure. But that piece of really the compassion part of your work is really helpful to me. And just to pull it, and later, 10 years later in my trauma recovery, as you saw, I sent you're the only person really, well, Mike saw a little chapter in my book too, but my next book about PTSD, but I really try to utilize this method of thinking of different parts, and they were different. One was hopelessness and one was, you know, keep on functioning. So that's kind of the same as the worker. So still a little bit of that there, but it was interesting to me in PTSD treatment years later to know that I didn't have to like hate them and that I could be curious about it. So I really used your work. I want to thank you, personally for that. And yeah, and this was actually super helpful. I feel like I should pay you. Like I had a therapy session. So I feel like actually more calm, and like even more of my eating disorder past is like kind of understandable and resolved. And with the 4-year-old, I really felt that. I mean, she was really scared, and no one's really had me go back quite the way you did and kind of let her be heard in such a way with that fear. And so that was really, really helpful personally to me today.
Good.
Yeah. So Mike, when can we do this again? I want to do this with Dick every week.
Right.
Yes. No, so as we close our presentation here with this IEADP, just a couple of thoughts. Again, number one, thank you very much, Dick and Jenny, for your time. For Dick, your expertise, Jenny, for your vulnerability and your willingness. You did an amazing job going back and being real with that. You gave us a great insight and a great view of really what this work can do with eating disorders. And I will tell everybody that is seeing this, when I last year saw Dick in person, and he did this with our clinical team, I'm like, wow, that's easy. I mean, he just kind of sat there and just kind of talked people through it. And then as I got into my own training with IFS and I was sitting with my very first client, I'm like, dang, it's not as easy as Dick made it be. So I just want everybody to know what you just saw. It was an expert in doing what he does, and he makes it look easy. So again, thank you, Dick, for your expertise and your time. I hope everybody really got a good feel of again, what IFS can do. And I like what Jenny said, there is a compassion to it. There's an understanding to it. And I think that there's a power right in that. So really just to end our presentation, I want people to know, you guys really got to see a bird's eye view of two things. Number one, the people that we have right at the Meadows. We have Dick, we have Jenny, and I'm just so grateful that we have the both of you to really have influence on the work that we do with our patients. But also I hope people got to see what we are doing with our patients at the Meadows Ranch. My teams are being trained in IFS, and we do obviously primarily our eating disorder work, but a lot of that comorbidity is the trauma work, and we've really upped our game at the Meadows Ranch with the trauma work that we are doing. And I am very, very proud, quite honestly, of my team, because that's not easy. That's not easy work to do, both eating disorders and trauma. But this is a wonderful model to do that. So I really hope everybody that's watching this got a really good feel of what that looks like and really the power behind it. And again, once again, I can't express my thank you, my gratitude again for Dick and for Jenny. And Jenny, you can talk offline if you want to talk to Dick next week. You guys can do that. But again, thank you so much. Hope everybody enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll see everybody in face next year at the symposium. Thank you so much.